I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast. Set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
And we're on. JC Yeahquo, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yep.
I've become a huge fan this winter. I have a military event at the end of the year where I have a roping where the military first responders, we gather a bunch of money for them, and we get some money added to it, and we get the top guys to come and rope with a lot of the military first responders, and then I'll have an NFR showdown at the last day, and then I'll put the military first responder roping in there with the NFR showdown at Cowtown Coliseum, so they get kind of a chance to spar with them a little bit and against them, and so I always call all the top guys to see who can and can't make it to the event.
Mm-hmm.
And when the splits were going on this year, I think I was talking to Peyton Bray, and I said, "Well, who's Buddy roping with?" Because I heard him and Andrew were splitting, and so who's Buddy Hawkins roping with? He said, "This JC character, man." He said, "This guy." He said, "He is rank."
Oh,
and
shit.
I remember watching you a little bit throughout the summer on the Cowboy Channel when I'd be able to watch team roping, and enough to where I kind of remembered. And then, so I was like, well, I want to watch this kid. And because I'm like, man, if he's got Buddy, he must be doing it the right way. And I've watched you all winter, and I'm telling you, there's nothing that I think of your style as close to Caleb Drigger's as yours. Like, you have a great style. You hit the barrier good. Your swing is perfectly smooth, and there's no rush from your delivery to the horns, and then your ability to ride so good after you rope and just post those steers up for Buddy. But another thing that I like about your run also is when he heels, the rope stays tight all the way through the finish. And I'm like, all right, that looked good once. And I think it was Fort Worth. Well, then I kept watching San Antonio, same thing. And then Houston. Golly, it was rank. I mean, your style looks really, really good. And you're only 23 years old.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Makes me want to go in a dark room and whip my own ass. It's so impressive. I'm such a fan. It's man, that's at 23 years old, man, you've got a lot of the hard stuff down.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. I sure do.
So where did you come from? Mandry, North Dakota.
Yep. So
walk us through kind of your timeline of where everything started, where you kind of worked your way down, and where roping kind of came into the picture.
We were, all four of us were born up there, and my parents, all their families from up there. And we moved to Oklahoma in 2001. And my dad, he had a bunch of horses he would get from my mom's dad.
So you were born in North Dakota?
Yep, Fargo, North Dakota, and spent the first year of my life up there.
Okay.
And then we all moved down here.
So it was a short term that you stayed up there?
Just real short, yes, sir. And my mom's dad, my papa, he would raise a bunch of horses every year, old foundation bred, a lot of paints and stuff like that, just real huge, looked like you could shag bulls on them all day long.
And that's when you moved to Oklahoma?
Yep. Well, my dad, he always trained a bunch of horses and stuff like that, and so he would get all those horses, and that's kind of how we got our start. Was he would train them and he'd get them good for us, those old slow horses, and we would just rope all day long, and we'd sit out there, we'd watch him train those horses, and LJ and I, we'd rope each other around our heads and our feet and all of that, and so that was kind of where we got our start is off of my grandpa's horses, and so that's pretty cool. We actually just lost the last one there last year, and it was pretty tough because all those horses were just so easy and everybody could ride them, but they weren't fast.
So that's where you learned how to use your rope.
Yeah,
more or less.
I talked to Shay Carroll a bunch about it. Like, that's the closest I ever was to the steer was in the box. And so when I was nodding, I was kicking and trying to get a start on them because, it seems like if you don't catch your steers a bunch, they really run. And
Yeah.
so we would chase them a bunch, and they would never slow down because we never caught them.
So was that Crescent in Oklahoma?
Yeah, that wasn't Crescent. When my parents bought that place, they had said that there was an arena on there, but the weeds were so grown up that my dad just was like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to drive off this ditch and cut through the pasture." He drives off the ditch, ran into the arena. And it's literally like the ditch and then the roping arena.
Yeah.
Like it's right off of the
And the weeds
the
were so
dirt
tall
road.
you
Yeah,
couldn't even see it.
couldn't see it.
That's some work to do.
But, yep. And then they must have mowed it down or something, and then put a round pen out there and just rode horses every day. I mean, it was nothing for him to have 60 head over there and breaking all those horses. And my oldest brother, he was the guy that would get on them, and my dad would put him on these big old broncs from North Dakota and raised out of the Badlands. And they'd be 6 years old, never been touched, and he'd get on them. And so that was always kind of fun growing up watching that. And
Now, you had some family that rode uncles.
Yep.
Because they're in the Cowboy Hall of Fame up there in Oklahoma City, correct?
They are, yep. Pete Fredericks and Joe Chase, they're a couple of pretty darn good cowboys.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you and your brother, you guys decided the rope route was going to be your guys' passion.
I think we were both too heavy set as little kids to be bronc riders. As much as I'd like to have been a bronc rider, I think it's fun to ride a horse that bucks. But, it seems like now it's better to fall off than to ride one. I'm not as sore if I fall off.
Well, yes and no. Depending on you did say you wrestled, so
Yep.
I would say you're probably athletic enough to be able to find how you're like a cat.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people though feel like getting bucked off is probably going to be the good route to go when they hit the ground.
Yeah, it's funny.
Depending on how they land.
When we first wanted to start, kind of riding and breaking colts, my dad was like, "All right, well, you got to learn how to fall off." Okay. He said, "Take off running on this horse and fall off and hit the ground. Don't get hurt. You got to tuck and roll." Like, okay. And so we started running, and I'd get to lean and and I'd talk myself out of it. And so he ties two ropes together, stands in the middle of the arena. We go running past him, and he just pull us off and taught us how to fall off our horses without getting hurt.
That's a good trait.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah, there is.
So what was high school like? What all did you compete in? What all sports did you do? And then when did team roping, like, when did you start? And then when this was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do.
Yep. So we were public schooled until the end of my 8th grade year, and then we went homeschool for my 8th and freshman year. And right about the end of my 8th grade year, beginning of my freshman year, was when I quit wrestling and started roping pretty hardcore. And
when did you start wrestling?
When I was 5, I wrestled. I wrestled for about 10 years. Yeah, and my oldest brother, he was wicked. He could do it. I think he's like a 2-time state champ or something. He's pretty dang good.
Now, how many brothers and sisters do you have in your?
I've got a sister. She's about 10 years older than me, and then I've got an older brother, Jesse. He's 7 years, and then LJ is a year.
A year. So you're the youngest.
Yep, I'm the youngest. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's 4 of us.
So wrestling might have been almost a way to survive. Being the youngest in your family, huh?
Yeah, I don't think I got whipped a lot. I never did much whipping, but I got whipped a lot. It's funny, the other day, LJ, he came down to my house for the first time. And he's been in the gym. He works out every day. And the sucker's solid. And I don't work out every day. And he comes and he ties up with me, and he's like, "All right, let's wrestle." And I'm like, "Dude, no, I don't want to. You work out every day. I don't." He goes to throw me, and I stick him, and I get him pinned on the ground, and he's like, "Oh my gosh!" and I'm like, "How's that gym treating you, bro?"
Yeah, there's strength and there's technique.
All that,
for sure.
all that work for nothing. Getting whipped by your little brother.
Oh, that's got to feel good being the little brother.
Oh yeah. I think I had only whipped him one time, pretty good, and we went a couple of years without fighting because I got him pretty good, and it was.
Now, did LJ wrestle?
Yeah, we all wrestled. Yes,
we all
sir.
did.
Yep. Yeah, I was probably 16 years old, and I had just started roping calves, and they wouldn't work the chutes for me. And I'm like, So I just turned the steers out. When they finished the pen, I opened the gate and chased them all out. And him and Jesse were team roping, and they got super mad at me. And Jesse's like, LJ, get off your horse and whip his butt. And he comes over and he smokes me right in the temple. And I'm like, oh gosh. And I tie up with him, and he tries to throw me, and he didn't throw me. And I get on top of him, and he pulls my hoodie over my head, and I just headbutt him and started whipping on him.
This is a real one. This is a good one.
This was, we boxed for 2 winters. And so it was right when we'd quit wrestling. So like 15-year-old year, 16-year-old year, we boxed. And when we would fight each other, it would hurt. So I think that's another reason why we went a couple of years without fighting again. And that was, it was sure enough a fight.
Yeah, when 2 people are tough, there's usually a mutual respect.
Yeah, I think there is now, because we can both kind of talk crap to each other, and like, all right.
I like that though, to be able to be dangerous and then learn how to control it. Because there's a lot to wrestling. I've heard a lot of people saying that like wrestling's some of the best fundamentals you can learn.
Yep.
And then boxing, just your hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, big time.
And then being able to, like say, defend yourself when you need to.
Yeah. That's
cool. That's really cool. I take my little boy, I take him to Taekwondo.
Oh yeah.
And so just for those skills, like it's fun to watch the hand-eye coordination that you have to have amongst that. And then I'm trying to do everything with him. And we do a little basketball, and then I think like next fall or next winter, I would like to get him into wrestling, because I think that would be so good to. Yeah, they say your balance and just
it's crazy,
and it's constant chess, right?
Yep.
You're trying to, you're always trying to get out of a move and counter a move, and it's a lot of chess to where you have to do it in an instinct.
Yep, it seems like you can always tell a wrestler, like if you're walking down the street and there's 40 people and there's 2 wrestlers, you can always tell, because they always move different. Like wrestlers always walk different than everybody else, and I think it's just because all the groundwork they have to do. Like, it's crazy.
I've taken jiu-jitsu with a guy here in town, and he's really cool because he was military and he used to rope too. So
sweet.
Had a lot of old stories about where he was stationed. He was actually stationed up there where I was from, and so
it
was pretty cool when we went to talking about backstories. And I'm almost sure he probably wrote with my dad, at one point in time.
That's awesome.
It was cool all of a sudden be down here all the way in Stephenville and then having that much in common. And he was telling me when he was learning how to show me, like when you're squared off with someone, that there's a certain technique that you can kind of tell what their strengths are. And he was talking about a wrestler bending down with his hands in front, saying basically he's going to go for your legs, and you can tell like that you're about to be sparring with a wrestler. And then he was talking about when a guy has his hands, up above his head right here, right there with his nose, like, all right, now, and he's dancing around with his feet like he's fixing to be probably a boxer.
Yep.
And he said when a guy goes bouncing up and down, like right here with his hands low, he said, watch out for his feet. That's probably your Taekwondo guy. And he said, but if you see a guy that's leaned off on his back foot with his hands in front of you like this, and his left leg's kind of in front of him like that, and he's kind of back there crawled like a cobra, he said, whatever you did, apologize for it now. Go buy him a beer, accept whatever it is that you did wrong, because you're going to get smoked. I thought that was a pretty good way to like at least understand what what's about to happen.
Yeah, my mom, when we had quit wrestling and didn't box, it was like my junior year. She's like, you guys have to do something through the winter. And there was a cop there in Crescent, and he did jiu-jitsu, and he traveled all around and stuff. So he had a mat in his garage and all kinds of stuff. And she's like, well, you're going to go over there and do jiu-jitsu. I didn't love that, because as much as grappling that I did, wrestling and stuff, but grappling and jiu-jitsu, totally different. That's a lot of work. Like when you're rolling around and all that, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. And it feels like it's an up close strength. If you get up close, it's very, very hard to defend.
Yeah. And that's, he would show us all kinds of stuff to like wrap up your arms with the gi and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I still train once a week, and I'm getting close to my purple belt.
Oh yeah. And
so the last part right here is on the ground, and I'm telling you, I'll go to a clinic, and we've been wrestling around and trying to get out of chokeholds, and I'm telling you, it'll knock your neck out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get a little sore right there trying to counter all those moves.
Oh, no kidding.
And there's a lot of chest to that too.
There is.
When you get on the ground, it's a lot of chest. There's
Yeah.
a lot of things that can happen.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, you just get to rolling around on the ground, and you could be in one spot at 1 second, and then you're 5 different spots at a different second. It's crazy.
This guy's 80 years old, and he's a 9th degree black belt. And when we spar, I swear he's got 3 hands. Like, where did that? Like, I had my eye on both of them, and then this one just came out of nowhere, and like, gosh, dang, yeah, it's a fun art.
Yeah,
it really
definitely is.
Man, so you've had a lot of training in that. There's a lot of discipline that comes with that. That has to be some of the things that probably helped you become such a good header as well.
Oh yeah, it might be. I don't know. I've had to work equally at hard as all of it. So I'm sure some of it comes from every piece of life that I've done, and so it's.
So you wrestled until 16?
15, yeah.
15, and then so what made the decision to quit wrestling?
It was either get off into wrestling pretty hard or get off into roping pretty hard, and I was like, there's a lot less exercise in roping.
Yeah.
It was my dad. He would make us run before school, and if we didn't make it in time, he would chase us with the car.
I'm liking your dad.
So now, anytime I would go to the gym, I'm like, I am not running. I will do everything but run. I am not a jogger, and thanks to him for ruining it for me, because I never liked it in the first place. My brother LJ, he could take off and he could run 6 miles easy just without stopping. Yeah, and not me. I'd get about a mile down and I'd get winded and be ready to take a break, and then here'd come this car.
That's funny. So 16 is kind of when you started putting a lot more effort into roping.
Yep. I played football my senior year. I had always played football up until I got homeschooled, and then took a break. I didn't play football my first 3 years of high school, and then all my buds back home wanted me to play football my senior year, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And finally, after the first football game, I'm like, I think I could do it.
Yeah.
So
what'd you play?
I was center and middle linebacker.
I bet you liked the middle linebacker.
It was fun. Yeah, it was.
It's fun learning to read the offense.
Yeah.
You're in the spot that you have the vision to be able to see.
Well, and you can kind of determine how they make their play, because I mean, if you're running up the middle or you're running up the holes or however, I mean, you can kind of determine on how they're going to run their route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I loved football. And then so what? You and your brother LJ, you guys roped basically your whole lives then, right?
Oh yeah, our whole lives.
So high school rodeo, you guys high school rodeoed?
We high school rodeoed together. I never did good at the high school rodeos. I always did so bad.
And this was in Oklahoma?
This was in Oklahoma. My senior year, we're 5th, and we have to win. Oh, maybe we were 6th going in.
This is your senior year?
My senior year. And we had to win like all the rounds or something like that to make it. And we win the first 2 rounds, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to make the high school nationals. I back in there on my old sorrel horse. I nod, and I just get going way too fast. I break the barrier. We're like 4.3 or 4.4 or something. And that was the determining factor of making the high school finals. Didn't make them.
So what do you think was the reason why the high school rodeos didn't go as well as, say, you wanted them to go?
My dad he'd always said, like, you know, if you're not putting in 100%, I'm going to be mad. And so I'd back in there, and I'm like 100% right here every time. And so that had a lot of, like, if I could have just toned it down to like 80%, I would have caught a lot more rather than going 100%. And I think
so is the 100% like trying to max it out
trying
as
to
fast
max
as you
out
can be?
every run as fast as I can
Got
be.
it.
And so I think that going in there with that mindset, I'm like, oh gosh, I can't have my dad mad. I can't have my dad mad. And I'd back in there and I'd get going fast. I'd break the barrier. I'd miss the steer, whatever it was. But no, I was quick to throw a 4 or 5 on them every time I caught, though.
I remember Speedy when he first kind of came out here. It was kind of my rookie year, and I remember being in the rig with him, coming back from Houston, and I think they were winning it like on 2, and I think he smoked the barrier down in the 3rd round of be high call. And he was talking about sometimes like where he just blanks out, almost from going so fast, going so fast constantly, because he was 100. That dude was 100, for sure. But it was his route, and I would say probably even Drigger's a little bit too, was that route where it was, when he first came out, it was all speed. Dustin Esquiza, when he first came out, was all speed. Well, then later, that's when Speedy started learning how to finish. That's when he started learning if he had the lead, like to go knock him down. And it's funny to like learn the speed first and then the consistency later.
Yes. Yep.
Where like for me, I learned the consistency first, then had to start learning how to reach. And there's not one wrong or right way to do it. Well,
that's what I was going to say. I don't think that there's a better way of doing it on each way you do it. I mean, I think it just goes. Seems like the guy that learns to catch and go fast is the guy you always have to worry about at the jackpots, and the guys that go fast from the start and are learning how to catch, you don't have to really worry about them as much as the jackpots, or you don't, the rodeos, it's vice versa. Those guys are going to go faster. So I think it all kind of equals out, and it's kind of, and I think it has a lot to do with personalities too.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Personalities in a person is like Driggers, I never knew him up until like last year or so, but just seeing like the old videos that Camish would put on there and seeing Driggers, you're like, hey, that guy, he goes fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because Speedy will always say, live and die by the sword.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, everything was so consistent. And so guys were like, well, if he'd just been smarter, he took so much heat because he was ahead of his own game, really, because that was the Jake and Clay era back then. When Jake and Clay, they dominated him by consistency. And then Speedy shows up and just knocks him dead. Well, the problem is like, oh, yeah, he can't put it together 10 times. Well, then he started learning how. That's another thing you got to worry about, is then when they get real, real fast, then what happens when they get consistently fast? Then they're really hard to beat. And that's what that dude learned how to do. And then that evolved into Driggers and Clay Smith and where you're at now, and Dustin and Squeeze. And he changed the game. But that, I think you're right. There's a certain personality that when, like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go 100. And man, watching this winter, it looks 100. It looks
thanks.
awesome.
Thanks.
So your daddy pushed you pretty good then, and then you guys, so you went through high school, never made the high school finals, but then now college comes.
Yep.
And then
college comes our first year. I think we won the region our first year, and Jess Tierney was our rodeo coach. He's super good friends with him and his whole family, and we're sitting there at it's like the first practice, and he knows kind of how it just went fast because he would go to the high school rodeos and stuff, kind of recruit. And he said, hey, this is free money. All you have to do is just knock them down. Just catch the cow. That's all you got to do is just catch the cow. I'm like, okay, that's not hard. I run down there first college rodeo. I see him. I'm like 4 foot off the barrier, and I've got this big bay racehorse. I run him down to the end of the arena at Colby College, and LJ heels him, and we're like 8-2 or 8-3, and like barely make it back. And is on a pin of lopers.
You're 8 on a pin of lopers on a racehorse.
Yeah. Pin of lopers, 8, and then the short round. I think Colton Good won the short round. He blasted. He comes over the box with his rope, heads the steer, turns him. Heeler runs past the corner like 4 strides. He tracks back up, catches him. They were like a long 4, and I'm like, holy crap! All that went on with the heeler. They're a long 4, and I'm like, well, we got to go decently fast. So I had him to be probably 5 something. And I think LJ maybe got a leg or missed. And I was so upset. I'm like, oh, I went and got, what the heck? And kind of one of those deals like first college rodeo. Seems like I'm taking it a lot more serious than I have any other rodeo. But looking back now, it's like I don't really itemize rodeos as being a big rodeo or a small rodeo. It's like a rodeo is a rodeo to me. And I got to do the same thing either way now. So
you said you never made the high school finals when you were in the high school rodeo association in Oklahoma, but then when you went to what did you say, Oklahoma?
Yeah, Western Oklahoma State,
and that was Jess Tierney.
Altus, yep.
And you said you won the region.
I think so.
So you made some changes in between then, and
was
a lot of that due to Jess? Was he kind of helping you strategize a little bit?
I think he helped slow me down a lot. And then we win the region our first 3 years of college rodeo. And then last year, we're supposed to be the best team there. Like we had a pretty dang good winter. And I'm like, this is a day off. Mm-hmm. We caught 6 steers the whole college rodeo, but we won first 6 times. And we tied for third and fourth in the region and went to the college finals. But it was kind of funny. Like, my first 3 years, I win the region each year, and then fourth year, I barely make it.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to win the round of the last college rodeo to make it. And I wasn't even going to enter heading. I was going to enter heeling because I was like, there's no way I'm making the college finals, but I want to heel a muley at Gaiman. And our coaches are like, no, you're not going to do that. I'm like, come on, like, we're not going to make the college finals.
Then you did.
We did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to that. Jess, he's a winner.
He is.
That whole family's a winner.
Yep.
And I bet that was good to be able to, because a guy's going to need to know how to strategize. A guy's got to learn how to, especially in these tournament styles. I thought one of the things that I enjoyed about the tournament styles was the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to develop those runs. Speedy really helped me a lot with, like, my last year that I rodeoed. I was going to him the year before and working a lot more harder on my reaching and stuff like that. And he would strategize my practice sessions to where he would be like, all right, when I had Viper and Bob and stuff like that as horses and was roping with Rich, they would make a 7-second run and then a 5-second run and then a 6-second run and a 3-second run. Like, they would mix their practices up and stuff and then end off on a 9 and then 11-second run. And when I started kind of doing that a little bit, was like, all right, I can see where this, like in the wintertime, like these tournament style setups, I could see where, like, if you're last out and you only have to be, say, 6 or 5 or whatever, for me and Logan to be able to execute those runs. And then I would also do it to where, okay, if we had to be 9, say a legs, winning last and we just have to make it back. Well, I would try to go be 8-5, but that's how I'd free up my horse. So I'd free up my horse at the end, but it made me still have to rope like I was trying to win money. Because I had such a bad habit of, like, okay, I want to free my horse, and then my horse knew it. I'm slowing my swing down, I'm barely riding. Like, he knew the difference.
Yep.
But when I would make those runs where, like, I have to execute a 9-second run, but I'm freeing my horse up as I'm doing it. So then that way, like, when I was doing that, it made my horse where he never really knew what I was going to do. But I treated my practice sessions like I was still trying to win money, and stuff like that.
Yep.
And that helped me a lot. But when Thorpe came in a couple months ago and Wesley was talking about hard money versus easy money, I was like, holy crap. Like, he explained it so good on, like, make sure that the easy money, that you don't let that go. Like, if the roping's 4 flat and you got a 5-second steer, but a 5-5's winning 4th or 5th, like, can you go be smart and make that 5-5 run and make money and move on to the next one? And when he talked about hard money and easy money, oh my gosh, he did such a great job of explaining that. And that's a lot of development as a guy matures as a roper.
Well, now just thinking about that is like how you were saying, still being sharp and not letting off your swing and stuff. Like at Houston, when 9 was the last callback and we were like 6-7 or something, we had drew that steer twice. We knew he wasn't very good. We were 4-5 on him on one and 6-7 on him on another.
That's a little white steer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But
step left pretty good.
Step left pretty good, yeah. Buddy and I run him every day. But we get over there and I'm like, man, like if I slow my swing down, I might pop it off.
Right.
I might get a leg. I might hickey a horn. I might do something. So I'm just like running through there, like swinging my rope, and I just hit the horns hard. And you can hear it in the video. Like in Houston, you can hear it hit the horns. And Buddy's like, he said, that was awesome. He said, a lot of guys just go in there and catch. And I'm like, my catch loop, I think my catch loop is pretty sloppy. So if I'm sharp, it's better. And he said, you're going to see it in the sound frequencies the waves go way up on that spot. I just thought that was kind of funny. But like, I did that twice over there. And just for the fact of like, I didn't want to just go catch and be sloppy. Like,
right.
I don't like to ever be sloppy with my rope. Like I want it to be sharp. And I went pretty direct to the horns right there. Like steer doesn't have big horns, and I didn't want to go for the neck. I think that's what I just was, kind of saying, like back to how you were talking about and how Thorpe was talking about easy money, where like we could have tried to mash the gas and win first right there, but instead I just went and caught the steer and did it that way.
Yeah, and it was and everything has a certain sound to it. And I know exactly what Buddy was talking about because you could hear it and you could see it. Like your swing was so tight when on the horns, it whop. Yeah. Like it has a certain sound. Like you hear a good golf shot, like where it just barely grazes the grass.
Dang, that's pure.
And then that freaking ball, when it goes in the hoop and doesn't hit the rim, and just has that swish sound like that, had that kapow. Like it will look sweet.
Yeah, thanks.
It was really cool.
But no, that's what.
That's why I was wondering if you almost maybe learned a little bit of that on college, like knowing when to hold them, when to fold them, like learning how to make those runs.
I probably did. Just seeming like this is 5/8 winning the first round, but 9 is making it back. Well, I can work my horse right here, but still be sharp and make sure my horse is going to be good for the short round if we're going to go fast or however it is. But yeah, a lot of that went back to college too.
So you got to go to the college finals all 3 years too?
Yes, sir.
You have any luck at the college finals?
We won second 1 year, and then I think I maybe popped it off the right horn in the second round of the college finals. My second year, and then my third year. I don't really remember what happened my third year, but the first year we went was the best we had done. But we've got a couple of round wins up there, so that's pretty fun. Yeah.
I'll bet. So you and LJ, you guys roped all the way high school through college.
Yeah, I've never. Buddy's my first partner. Like this is the only other second partner I've ever had.
So when did you start rodeoing? When did you first buy your card? Like pro rodeo, excuse me.
The first rodeo we went to was Guyman, but I'm trying to think of what year it was. Maybe it was 21. And we were on our permits. Maybe it was 2020. It was kind of the year COVID had happened. So there wasn't many. So we had went to like 5 or 6 rodeos that whole year, like Park City, Kansas, Guyman, Hayesville, Duncan maybe. And, we had filled our permits at Guyman. Like we won like 5,700 or something at Guyman. And the next year, we didn't know anything. Like hadn't talked to anybody or anything like that. And so we just bought our cards. We're like, oh shoot, we filled it. Might as well buy our cards, see if we can get into Lawton. Because if we have our cards, we can get into Lawton. And so we bought our cards, goobers. And I think that year we won like 14 or 15,000, and it was just circuit money. We didn't go to any other rodeos but in the circuit. And I think the reason we bought our card was for the Lawton rodeo, and like another rodeo that was just tour only, where you had to have your card. But yeah, that was kind of our first year, and then we had went through like the fourth. This is kind of a funny story. This is 21, and it's the year that Clay and Jade put the arena record at Belfouche,
so
South
2021, I believe, then, right?
Yeah. Well, I run the steer there, and I get completely outran. I get to the end of the arena, and I throw my whole entire rope, and when I pull it, it comes out of my right hand. Like, that's how far I threw this rope. And I'm just so mad. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not meant to be out here. Like, this is the big guys. And we go all through the fourth, down through like Estes and stuff, and didn't win any money. I don't even know if we had a clean time. And so we go home, and I'm like beating myself up. I go to the practice pen. I'm like, I've got to work on my scoring. I've got to work on my pulling. I've got to. This is 7 or 8 things that I sucked at that I have to fix. Well, Belfouche, Britt Smith messages me, and he's like, hey, you got a video of your steer? And I'm like, yeah, dude, good luck. Like, he's horrible. He runs so hard. And we're driving that night, and I see Classic Rope post a video, new arena record, Clay Smith, Jade Corkle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just telling me like I'm not supposed to be out here. I can't even catch the steer that they set an arena record on. But with that being said, as soon as he nodded, he was riding, throwing his whole rope. But
it's a lot easier when you have a rerun. I will say that. When you know what you're about to run, and you run, but when you run it for the first time and you have no idea what you got, so that's a difference. So like a lot of people don't understand reruns. Reruns are a huge advantage. If you know that sucker leaves sharp, you know you can get ahead of it. You got to have a game plan. But another thing is like I do a lot of clinics on the weekends and stuff like that throughout the year, and what I tell everyone was like the clinics that I attended a lot of times was when I first went out there, and I started realizing that I had a knife in a gunfight. And when I'm competing against Speedy and Jake Barnes,
I had
and
a butter
Clay
knife. Like one of those plastic ones. Those plastic ones that break.
I've been there, man. Yeah, I've been there. That's education. Like it's amazing what you'll learn if a guy has enough discipline, if a guy has enough balls, basically, that this is what you're going to do. The guys that learn from that stuff, they're the guys that learn how to make it and move on.
Yep.
And then the other guys that break them, like, oh, it's the only knife I had. They're like, I'm done. That's going to be hard.
Better forge your own knife.
Yeah.
No,
and those guys are. When a guy does go out there and sees it for real, it's an education.
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
It's amazing what those guys can do. My dad. We were sitting there as maybe after Belfouche, and I had to watch like Dustin like every time. Like, think this guy's amazing. This is the best ever. And he asked me, he's like, "Can you beat him?" And I'm like, No way I can beat him. This guy's amazing. Like, look what he's doing. He goes, "Then why are you entered?" And I was like, oh my gosh.
Now I got to figure out how.
That's right. I was like, I gotta figure out what I'm doing. What he's doing that I'm not doing.
Yeah.
And
that's when a guy can get creative. You can reinvent yourself. You can study. That's what's so good, I think, now about the Cowboy Channel and social media. You can study those runs.
Yeah. The
reels now that they have on the good cameras, man, you can see so many, especially when they slow mo it. And you can see where their first swing comes up. You can see the rotation of their hand. You can see what their left hand does after they rope.
Yeah,
guy can learn so much now.
I need to get better at that, of like watching them and stuff. Like, I only watch them at the events. Like, I don't go and like look back through the videos and stuff. Like, I get a good picture of like what he's doing riding, and then like where he's taking his horse through the motions and stuff. And I'm like, well, that's what I need to do better. And that's, I mean, it's just to think of like what those guys can do is amazing.
Well, I've watched it this winter. You're right there with them. So you guys, that was kind of your first feel of what it was like out there with a plastic knife.
Yeah.
So how did you start?
One.
How did you start? Did you come back home after that? What did you do to start kind of getting a little bit better arsenal besides your plastic knife?
We went home and we buddied with Ryan Boatwright and Kingston Chang, and we buddied with them. Went to all the circuit rodeos. Like, I don't know how many rodeos. We probably went to 30 rodeos that whole year, and all of them were the circuit rodeos, except for we went to Cody, Red Lodge, Belfouche, Killdeer, Mandan, and Estes. All the others were circuit rodeos. And we went through all those circuit rodeos with those guys, and it was awesome. We all jumped in one rig, one horse apiece, had so much fun, just loved it. And what I had watched out there, I came back to the circuit rodeos and tried to do back home at the circuit rodeos. And so, like, how those guys are getting the send on their rope of like whipping the horns. And I don't know if I've got very good at whipping the horns from the end of the rope. Like, it seems like it hits the horns and that's it. Like, but how they could whip the horns is crazy. And so I just went back home, and like when I would head the steer, I would just kind of like try to push him out the front to not have any like dead motion through the turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before the summer, I had a lot of dead motion through the turn. Like, the steers would always hit, and then I'd be trying to pull them after they were hitting. So it was like my guy would get there, swing, wait for the steer to jump out, and then heel him. And a
little bit of a dead spot in that corner.
Yeah, big time. And
takes time, and then it's hard to finish.
Yeah, like I would head the steers to be 4-2, and we would be 5-2.
Right.
And so I'm like, man, I'm working so hard to be this fast, and I'm not being fast. So then that's when I kind of like recreated my horse pulling the cow and like into a different spot.
There's so much to heading. There's a lot of moving parts. I always think of it like the quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
It takes so long to learn how to be confident, stand in the pocket, and read the defense.
Yeah.
And so like as heading, there's so much to that timing to when you see your start, when to bring that first swing up. So when you hit the line, you're in stride with your horse. For me, when I would find that timing or that rhythm, because when my horse was going forward, my swing was going forward. So it was a lot easier to send it because you're in time. And that takes thousands of reps, thousands of horses, thousands of steers to be able to just learn that.
Yep.
And then once you get comfortable with that, because it's hard to learn how to face if you're still trying to learn how to catch.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes into a sequence. First you got to be able to hit the start and get consistent with the start, because then you can find your feel and your timing. Well, then once you have that, then you can start, chalking up your pull stick, put some English on them horns, Then after that, then a guy's got to learn, now after I catch, now how the heck do I get him healable? And so it's a long process to be able to learn how to stand in that pocket and read that defense. And I think that it takes a lot of reps, doesn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it does. I think my horse would maybe have a lot more run right now if I didn't just mash the gas every practice. Like I would go fast every time on him, and then I would take the last gear and I'd free him up.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I'd rope on him was for me, and which there's nothing wrong with him now. Like he's seemingly sound, like fine. But I would, for me, every time I was roping for me. And then I got to talking to the guys that were down here that were always doing so good at the rodeos and the ropings. I'm like, well, what's your practice look like? They're like, oh, pretty slow. And, I really just rope for my horses. And I'm like, really? So then I started roping for my horse, like making him correct and doing everything right. And then I'd maybe have one horse around there that I could go fast on every time, just in rope for me, but it was never the same feel as getting on your practice horse as getting to your good horse. Never was for me anyways.
It's such a fine balance between staying sharp and then keeping your horses working.
Yeah.
Especially heading. They got to stay scoring. They got to stay flat. And another thing too is, there's a couple of different ways you can head. For a lot of guys, like for you, I think you're a squeezes. There's a handful of guys that they're needing that flat horse so they can use their rope.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think like some of the guys left out there, they're still using their horse. I think Clay Smith does a good job.
Yep.
Like he'll use his horse now. Clint Summers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
like when
awesome.
when I was out there, it was, Trevor Brazil. He was the king of using his horse. He would nail that barrier. The horns were coming to him and rope on the way in, set him up first hop and done, and then you'd watch guys that a little bit less where they can a little flatter, a little slower horse so that they could use the rope. And then now it's gotten, we're almost using your ropes faster than almost a good horse will almost get in your way a little bit if they're running too hard. And it's such a balancing act.
Yep.
And practice horses was probably what I would tell so many young kids, like learning how to find those reps if you have that good one, because you want them to last.
Mm-hmm.
A good practice horse will let you use what you need to learn to find that timing, find that shot, and then be able to work on your handles. And I think practice horse too, also not only for yourself but for your partner.
Yep.
Because your partner's needing those looks in that vicinity where, okay, if we're going to have to be 3, there's a certain spot in the arena the steer's going to have to turn. So he has to learn how to be able to get to that spot, or if we got to be 4, or if we got to be 5. That's where I think the practice horses are their money's worth spent, is to be able to develop that run.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like my practice horses, I always tried to get them where they were the same kind of build as my good horse, because
that makes sense.
I don't want to be practicing on a 16-hand horse when my good one is 14-3.
Absolutely.
So it's like the strides will never be the same. It's hard to get the timing to be right if you're open on a total different animal. But if
100%
you can get
agree.
one that's pretty similar, one that might be a little slower, one that doesn't score or something like that, where you got to work on their scoring for you to be able to get on your good one and your scoring be the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's a lot to that for sure. So last year, you and your brother, you guys, is that your first like full time, like we're going to go out?
No.
Or did you guys go?
That was our
second year. Second year.
Yep.
So in 2022, you guys started. You're all in.
We buddied with the Johnsons all through the 4th and just a little bit after. But
Kellen and
Carson. Yeah, they're super good guys. But we had buddied with them and rodeoed out there and did it all. And then we did not go to the Northwest, but we came home and went to some circuit rodeos and stuff like that. But
what did you learn that year?
Oh, geez, I learned so much that year. When I got home, I was up and getting roping at like 8 the next day. And, I didn't give my horse a break. I'm like, this is what me and my horse need to work on. And my old bud, Steve Orth,
what were you working on?
I was working on my riding. It seems like if nonetheless, every time you go out there, you can always fix your riding. So like riding towards the horns where like before I was riding straight out the box. My horse would get a little wide, like he kind of lost sense of cow. And so then I kind of like take him back and like tried to put sense of cow back into him. And then like my distancing of my rope, like that needed to be a lot sharper and less rope out there. Cause I could throw my whole rope and be 2 coils away. And then I'd have all the slack out there. And I'm like, well, I threw a catch loop. Well, then I'm throwing sharp loops, but Steve, he was good. He would come over. He'd be there about 7:38 every morning. We'd rope all day long, and that guy, he's pretty sharp with the horse. Mm-hmm. And so I got to just being around him and watching how he would ride, and like I would try to fix my riding to be as correct as his, and do it all that way. But No, I think riding like more towards the cow than away from the cow, because it seemed like if I rode away from the cow, then there was still kind of a dead hang spot through the turn where like the steer wasn't square and they were kind of like floating through the turn. Whereas like if I could ride towards him and then I could head him and pull him, it would change his direction faster. There wouldn't be a dead spot.
Over himself too, where you can bring him back up the pin.
Yep.
And another thing too is being so wide, you better have a lot of arena.
Yes. Well, that was the other part of it, is like going, whether I was going to go straight towards the flag or inside the flag or outside of the flag.
In the front of the box.
Yes. Yep. And just knowing like how much arena was right there to do it with.
Yeah, setting up a throwing lane to help right there with your reach, and then that also helps create the pocket you can pull that steer back at.
Yep.
Because my biggest problem was the amount of time Trevor and even Luke would tell me, like, man, you're too wide. And because I'd be so wide, well, then I have to stop my horse in the corner and just even get the steer to come back. Well, I never was good at coming back because of the angles that I would have. That was incorrect. You know, every time that I keep hearing you talk, everybody you keep dropping, like there was some, almost like whether it's unintentional or intentional strategy, like you've gotten in front of some pretty good people. Like Steve Orth is a horse training son of a gun.
Oh, that's my bud. Yeah,
I went over to the futurity and
helped him the other day.
Yeah, he knows the feet. And to be able to learn that little stuff like that, okay, this is where I'm trying to strategize my horsemanship. Okay, let's go find a horseman.
Yep.
Like that's great strategy.
Yep.
Really good strategy.
Well, he would come over and he'd even bring head horses, and I would just watch the way like he would ride those head horses and keep them put together through the whole run. Is like.
And then were you able to get on some of his head horses and turn steers for him? So then you're getting a feel for it too.
Yeah. He had one. I tried to buy it the other day. I'm looking for a head horse that's fast, and so that score's pretty good because I've got the rodeo horses down. I think my two rodeo horses are pretty good, kind of every setup. But I need one that's kind of jackpotty. And I called him the other day, and it's like, hey, where's that horse at? Well, told me they ended up not wanting to sell him, but man, that horse had a feel. Yeah, that horse had the right feel because he was built like my good one. And so I'm like, man, but he was so fast.
That's where a guy can make a lot of money, I think, when a guy started to get developed enough to where, you know, the entry fees, you know, the money on money and stuff like that, the rodeo is pretty good, especially if you make the NFR where you can get a lot of money. But, you know, the jackpots cost a little bit more money, but man, the good ones, there's some, that's where a guy can dang sure make the money, like your BFIs and your, you know, a guy wants to be well-rounded enough to where you're able to win that trailer at the Lone Star Shootout. And, you know, those are some good ways to where a guy keep adding to your assets for sure.
Yep. And there's another part. It was like we were second callback, my buddy Logan Moore and I, at the Lone Star Shootout this last year. And if I could have just slowed down and like paid attention to the cow, I'm like, I wouldn't have broke the barrier, and I could have pulled him better, and we wouldn't have got a barrier in the leg, and we would have placed pretty good in that. We weren't going to win first. We'd have been like 3-1.
What about the performance that dude put on at the Lone Star Shootout?
Oh my gosh, how amazing was that? But
Dustin a squeezer.
So fast.
Throw the times at me again. I don't want to get it wrong, but I thought 3.8 maybe the first round.
I think they were 3.9.
3 something.
4 flat, and then 3.7.
3.7 the short round.
I was like, that guy's unbeatable.
You want to know what assassin sounds like? Just knock that out. Like, what is that on 3? 11?
Yeah.
On 3?
Yeah, that's nuts. That's what I'm saying. We would have had to have been like.
And Driggers was just waiting for him to mess up.
He was hitting the barrier. He was being so perfect.
Disciplined.
Every time.
He was like Iceman on Top Gun. Like he was not going to make a mistake. Perfect.
I think perfect is the word.
Because he won second, third, and fourth.
Yeah.
Or second, third, and fourth. Just waiting for Dustin, and it never happened. That Dustin hit a heater about then there in Austin. First 2 rounds at Angelo.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so fast.
And that's hard to do what he's doing.
Oh my gosh. He's whipping the horns.
He's gotten that timing where he stays the same distance it feels like from the steer the whole time and gets ahead of that horse, able to throw at the line, and it's that timing. And then once he does, just loop, and then finishes. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Golly, like historical sticking. It was I got to watch from the sidelines, just on social media, and then just hearing everyone talk about like how fast he was at that rope.
Oh my gosh.
That's the assassins the guy talks about.
Yeah.
That's a killer right there. It's Frank, what that guy does. So let's go over. So then last year, full-time rodeoing again, and you guys did pretty good last year.
Yeah, we did good.
You won San Angelo last year, right?
Yep.
And so then, because you rodeoed in 2022. Did you make it to all the buildings into 2023?
No, we had only got into Fort Worth and Austin. So we were Fort Worth and Austin.
Because I remembered something about your rodeo count. Like maybe you guys didn't quite hit your rodeo count that first year.
No, we went over.
Yeah.
We won Stephenville and it didn't count. That's kind of cool. We got to win Stephenville 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
Yeah. Well, we split it this last year and they did a coin toss. We didn't get the rifles. So I was kind of upset about that. The buckles are cool and all, but the rifles are cool.
Are awesome.
Yeah. I keep that one in my truck with me. It's pretty dang cool.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing, like when a guy talks about discipline, discipline's hard, but you got to choose your hard, right? So like discipline is like, they talk about if you're disciplined, it's hard. But then your life is easy. But then it talks about it's easy not to have discipline, but then your life is hard.
Yeah.
And when a guy learns that discipline, which you have because you've wrestled and you've done all that stuff, it's hard because like when you're getting out here, there's so many things you don't know. And especially like you think about Procom, there's no blue book on Procom. Like there's no directions. It's all talking to other people, feeling out how it is. Rodeo counts. Rodeo counts are huge too because that's a discipline deal. Like I wrote it down because I could not trust what the PRCA had going on. I knew I better be sharp on my stuff. But then it's easier to keep track. And like and there's so much to it. I'm telling you, like it took me so long to figure all that stuff out. And so you guys was in 2022 right there with them, but then just didn't know that Stephenville didn't. And what I mean by the rodeo count for everyone is like you get 75 rodeos,
correct?
Get
75.
You can go to as many as you want, but you have the unofficial, the ones you don't want to count towards the world standings. And then you was off by one, I guess, at Stephenville.
Yep.
Won the rodeo.
Amarillo was our first one. We went our last one, Amarillo. And then after Amarillo, we drove to Stephenville. But no, and our thinking on it was like, well, we didn't go to the Northwest. We don't have to worry about our rodeo count. Like we've got all these rodeos. So we went home and we took like a 2-week break because there was not really anything between the Northwest and then. So take a little bit of a break and we got like Sykeston and Lawton and stuff. And then there's a break and then Stephenville, Amarillo, all that. And we're like, well, shoot, we've got rodeos left. So we didn't pay attention to it. And LJ, he did all the entering, and it's not his fault. I should have been on it too. Like I should have been paying attention and like unofficial one or the other. But I mean, looking back now, it was 2 years ago. It didn't. It was gonna move us from 27th to 26th or something like that. So not really a big difference, but it was mismanagement and shouldn't have been mismanagement.
It's one of those mistakes though that are made that is it. If it can be made where it doesn't affect nothing, it's like. But then when it does and it doesn't, like Kelsey Chase, she was in here last week and we were talking about her first NFR. And I think in 2020 when they had the breakaway finals for the very first time, and she had such a good lead, she came home for a couple weeks. Well, she didn't know that those 2 weeks she took off, or I forget exactly how long it was, but she came home for a little while. And she didn't realize because she'd never been out there. Those 2 weeks, all of a sudden everyone caught up. And she was like, oh gosh. And then had to go back out there again and then had to go out there and win. And didn't know because just don't know, at that point in time. And then it was just enough time where it let everyone catch up. And then when she had to fight back, she had to win Stephenville to make it and didn't make it. And it's one of those, I mean, those give people nightmares. That would give me nightmares. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh crap, that was a ball drop. Like too early to take your foot off the gas pedal. And, if a guy can make those mistakes where it's not that scarring, then it helps develop the roper and the person and stuff like that. But yeah, rodeo and it's tough. There's so many easy mistakes made till the guy figures out how this stuff all works.
Yep.
Yeah, those rodeo counts are tough. There's still a lot of guys. There's still a mishap last year.
Yeah.
It still goes on.
Yep.
So
well, that's the deal. Is like Buds. He sends me a list the other day. He's got all 80 rodeos down.
Yep.
That we're going to go to this year. So.
You're fixing to find discipline right there with that man.
Yeah,
he will have
that's
it strategized.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
He's a sharp cat.
The only thing that I'm worried about is the week of like Calgary, Sheridan, and Casper's. I got to take care of the books then because he's going to rope with Andrew and I'm going to rope with Colin
up there at Calgary.
Yeah, and Casper because they are at the NFR Open the same time as Calgary.
That's what it is. Got it.
Yeah. So we have to do a little switch up right there. And I talked to Colin about it the other day. So I probably will overthink it and overdo it, but I'm just gonna do it and make sure I don't mess up.
Yeah. No, you'll be good. But the good thing is, like, you're in front of Buddy, with this a guy that takes care of business.
Oh yeah,
You're going to learn a lot from that, and that's
yeah.
a lot of college degrees right there, of being able to get somebody that knows how that stuff works. That's going to eliminate a lot of mistakes going forward for sure. So I had a good year last year. End up making all the buildings.
Yeah, we made the buildings for this year. Yes, sir.
Won San Angelo last year. You and your brother had a pretty good year for what your second or third year?
rodeos were really good. Like I think we win Jackson, win that one in South Dakota in the winter.
Rapid City.
Mm-hmm. San Angelo did really good at Austin. Maybe won the first round, placed in the second round, and then I think I missed the third round or something like that. But we stacked it up pretty good through the winter to start off, and I think we had like 38,000 or something like that going into Reno.
Good winter.
Yeah.
Real good winter.
Yeah, real good.
So what did you feel like you learned last year in the summertime that going in there this summer that you're ahead of? Because a guy has 38,001 going into Reno. That's a good spot.
Yep.
And so what did you feel like last year that you learned? Because summer's a lot different.
Yes, it is.
It's I think
if I remembered right,
July, you can probably, there's maybe 5 days off, maybe the same thing, maybe 3 or 6 days off. In August, like, you rodeo every day.
Well, that's what Buddy was saying. He was like, we've been to 12 rodeos so far this year, and then now the end of May we'll have been to 30, or the middle of May we'll have been to 30 rodeos. So it's like, even starting now, it's still quite a bit of rodeo to be going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's where a lot of money's made too. And it is different out there. That you get out in the summertime, the starts are out there, the steers are stronger.
Yep.
And just the lack of practice.
Yep.
There's very seldom does a guy get a chance to try to get that vibe again in the practice pen, because there's just not enough time to do it.
Yep.
So so you guys didn't go out west, did you?
This last year we did, yep.
You did?
Yeah, we went to the Northwest, and we placed in the first round at Ellensburg, and we placed second in the first round at Walla Walla. Didn't do any good at Kennewick, but we placed at Caldwell. We were kind of placing along there and doing decent.
So you guys were able to go out there last summer then and get up to the Northwest, get to all the rodeos you're going to need to go to this year.
Yep.
Because I think as a header too, it's important also to be able to just kind of even know like what the setup's like.
Yeah.
That's where I thought, like, the end of my career is so much easier, because like I knew kind of what steers they were going to rope. I knew kind of like what the start was like. I knew what the size of the arena was.
Well, that's what
guys never been there. It is tough to kind of figure that out.
Cody, they threw a little mix at me. I didn't think anything of it, and I'm like, it's kind of a deeper box. Mostly an even start on sharper, harder running steers. Like 4 or 5 isn't what wins the rodeo. It's like 4 or 5 to 5 flat seems like, and like, well, I'm gonna get on my roan horse and do a little chasing right here. And I didn't even ask the measurements before I got on the horse, and I've got my good Sarl Go Fast horse standing over there, and they're like, oh, it's like 1.5 feet under on lopers. I'm like, oh man. And I hit the barrier, and this blue horse is just running, and I had the steer, and I just smoked it right off the right horn. I'm like, oh my gosh,
too much gain.
Yeah, he was. Now he's really paying attention to my throw. Not that he's ducking, but like he's reading it. Like he
let you place
Lufkin the other day. He was. I've never felt one feel so perfect.
Yeah. And
I'm like, man, this horse is legit. Like, he's going to be so good for my longer scores. And he was super good at Sheridan. Like Sheridan, that's one of the longer scores to go to, Cheyenne. But seemed like those were good for him. But yeah, that one.
So last year you got to finish out the whole thing, got to see all the stuff you needed to see, and then end up being in the top 30, somewhere in the 20s right there at the end of it. And then you've roped with your brother your whole life.
Yeah.
Right. You said that's the only partner you've ever had. And so then make the decision now to rope with Buddy Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
What made the decision? How did that happen. And no, being brothers, that's got to be real tough.
Oh, it was pretty hard. Yeah. I don't know. I just wasn't happy with my performance, and I'm like, I want to get down to Stephenville, and I want to be around the best guys, and I was just like, well, I told him after Albuquerque, I was like, hey, bro, I'm gonna do something different next year. I think I'm gonna find a different partner, and he's like, well, who are you gonna get? I'm like, I haven't talked to anybody.
So he's honest right up front.
I told him, I said, I'm not going to rope with you next year. I'm going to get somebody else. I said, I want to get a guy that's a veteran that's done it and it's going to help me with my rodeo. And I said, I need something, a step above, like teaching me, like I think we've learned all we could learn together, being so raw, not knowing anybody, not talking to anybody. Like I've got to get with somebody that knows it. And, I'd always talked to Buddy, and we had roped a couple times at jackpots and stuff like that. And, we had roped in the 17 ropings and all kinds of stuff. And I called him, and I don't even know. I just asked. I was just maybe asking on who he thought about was going to be open for healers, and maybe he said something about him and Andrew not doing anything next year. And I'm like, well, shoot, maybe we could start roping. And he's like, oh yeah, he said, I'm not going to commit to anybody right now in case, one of the best guys opens up and wants to rope. And I'm like, no, I completely understand. Like I get it. And, we talked on the phone for like an hour and 50 minutes. Well, he screenshotted it, the first phone call ever to talk about roping. And I thought that was pretty neat because he said something about it the other day. It was like the first phone call about roping. And we end up roping all through October at the jackpots, and November and December out in Arizona. We roped his first partners out there, and when he got back from the finals, he's like, well, I think we could probably enter Odessa together. I'm like, well, perfect. We'll enter Odessa. And still, I don't even think that we were fully committed to each other. Like I know if he had an option at Clay Smith, he's going to go with Clay Smith, which I would too if I was a healer. And so I was like, well, shoot, well, it ended up working out pretty good. We went to Denver, Odessa, and all the winter stuff together. And we kind of, I don't know, right before Denver, we're like, all right, we're going to be first partners for the next few years. And so that's just how it went. Was I wanted to do something different and get down here and be around all the guys that are beating me every year and see what they're doing, so I could kind of be in the mix of it.
There is a lot to that. I've talked to a lot of the guys and stuff like that. Like if you're not even just around here, there's a lot of guys that can rodeo from all over the place, but like when it comes to the wintertime, they're all in this vicinity because this is where the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And it's hard to stay out there on an island and come out here and compete. Now, there's some guys that are just that talented. But for me, it was not me. I always went where everyone was at just because there was so much knowledge that I didn't have that I needed to. I tried doing it on my own, and I realized I couldn't find it. And to be able to get around the guys, the killers, man, this is where they hang. And so you end up getting a place down here, correct?
Yep. I got a place. I moved out in the 1st of November, and I've been on my own since, and just living and loving roping.
That's awesome.
Just doing all of it and get up every day, feed horses, and start building on my place over there. And stays pretty busy. It was there for a little bit when I had first got this place. I went to building on it so much I was lacking in the practice, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do that. Like I've got to.
That's a balance.
Yes. Yeah. So seems like I would rope either in the mornings or I'd rope in the evenings, but it was kind of like 50-50. Like I would work just as much as I was roping. So a lot of tired nights, especially like I've done most of it all myself. I had a guy do my driveway for me, my entryway, and just because I wanted it to look perfect. Yeah, I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun when a guy gets start putting his own place together.
Oh yeah, seems like there's just one thing after another.
That's another problem. Yeah, it almost seems. I still don't to this day think like it ever stops.
Yeah. That's one.
It can take a guy sidetracked for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So when you and Buddy decided, you said around Odessa and Denver, like, okay, you guys are in now. Like, you guys are going to be partners.
Yep.
Like, did you feel some pressure? Like, now that you got one of the top guys, like, oh gosh, or did you just like, oh, no, good, I got one of the guys. I just got to go do me.
Oh, I just maybe it was my first year going out and rodeo, and Colin came over to the house and we're roping one day, and I'm like, hey, I said, I never talked to anybody about rodeo, and like, I don't know. I'm like, you got 2 buckles. Like, what is something that you're going to tell a rookie that's never done it, doesn't know anybody, and needs help? He's like, just do your job. And I'm like, all right, that's fair enough. Because then you think about wrestling, you're like, you go out there, you do your job, you're probably going to win. And all the preparation that I've done my whole life, and just the same as anybody else, But if you put that into perspective, like, just do your job. Like, I go out here and I rope every day. That's what pays me. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I just go out there, just continue to rope every day, and that's doing my job, it's going to keep paying me. And so when we started roping, I didn't really change any perspective of like, I'm going to rope with him versus roping with my brother. Like, one or the other, I still have to do my job. And that's kind of what I told myself, is like, it doesn't matter who I rope with. I still have to do my job. And if I had the steer and jerk the steer down, that's not doing my job. If I had the steer and break the barrier, that's not doing my job. So it's like, just had to put that into perspective of what Colin told me, just being real green at it. And I think I've lived by that.
It looks like it.
Since he's told me that, is like, just do your job. And
I love On. He's got such a simplistic way of viewing things that works. Yeah. To where it's not overcomplicated. Right.
You're dang right.
It's such a hard deal of like, all right, I got to get disciplined where I can learn the techniques of making sure that this one little thing that's not costing me money and sharpen up on it, but then not getting in your head so much you're practicing for things you can't even control. Such a balance.
That's a guy that I roped with him a few times. He never messes up.
Iron Man.
Perfect. Yes. Like you talk about Iceman. Is go to a practice with Colin Vaughn and see how he does it. It doesn't matter if he's heeling on a 3 or 4-year-old or if he's heeling on his good roan or his good sorrel. It is the exact same spot through the turn, perfect swing over the perfect spot of the steer's back, and it's just perfect. Like, and Andrew came over one day and headed for LJ, and like I didn't even need to rope. I was like, this is awesome. This guy's amazing. And I just sat there on my colt and I worked the chutes and I just watched how he hit it. And he didn't even bring his good horses. He brought his colts over. And I was just like watching, like, I love roping so much. I don't mind watching. Like I told Driggers the other day, I was like, hey, I said, I want to come over and watch you rope. Like, I don't even want to bring a horse or nothing. Like, I want to work the chutes and I want to watch you rope. And I've told that to a few people, and I haven't got the invite to come work shoots yet, but I think it's awesome, like, just to see what those guys are doing.
I just showed up.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I'm right with you. I loved it. I love watching the guys that were good. And there'd be times like, hey, what time you open? And I'd just show up. Yeah. I didn't care because I figured they didn't mind somebody breaking the boxes and freaking working the shoots.
Yeah.
Just watching those good runs. I haven't gotten to go anywhere in a long time, just because I've been schooling and doing a lot of other things here outside the arena. But this weekend I got to go to the Futurity up there in Ardmore. And just watching those guys that ride every day, that train every day, and watching how good they are with.
They're just a hair on the horse, aren't they?
Oh, it's just so fun to watch. It's so fun to watch the good horses and watch the foot speed and the run set up, and just seeing that stuff again. It sparks that creativity again, because you're able to talk with that. Joseph has gotten good on the head side. Harrison.
Oh, yeah.
And Air Force One is right. And you're watching him and Tate Kirkenslogger and Miles Baker are kind of those 3 guys right now that are just sparring back and forth. And, then able to like, all right, well, we're working on this week, and just talking about the run and how they're shaping it up. And because that's your clinic, that to me, like that's when I end up getting those things, those little windows, those little nuggets, those little things that's going to spark more creativity, which is more knowledge, and because you're trying to perfect your run, and it's always evolving. And so, for me this week to just get my head back in the game and like watch all that stuff, it's like, I can't wait to get back to practice pin again.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. Because, that's how I always was rodeoing, whether it's going to the jackpot or it's going to the rodeos. Like, I always try to pick up on something. So whenever I always take something back to the practice pin, and I'm not just practicing without a purpose. There was a while that I would rope on like 10 horses a day, and I got to the spot where it was like I was practicing without a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to do that. And then you're like, oh, my rope's sloppy, like all that. And so I took it every day, and I was like, each individual horse I either had something to work on them with them or something to work on with me. Whether it's like I'd have a young horse there that could really run, and I would work on like getting to the horns hard and then slowing down and getting him rated back. But yeah, just being around those guys. It's funny. My first year at college, I went over to Miles' house, and he was like a 5-heeler or something like that, and I was a 6, and I'm like, yeah. So we're sitting over there, and I had taken a heel horse, and I'm like, let's match. And we had a header over there, and he's like, all right. Well, he ended up beating me, but I just thought it was funny. We talked about it the other day on the phone. I'm like, hey, yeah, about that time whenever we were over there, we matched in the heeling. I'm just a 6+ now, and you're an 8. Like, we just kind of laughed about it. It was like, and that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's gotten amazing.
Well, you talk about a guy that went ahead, just
Jumped in.
roped good, rode good cowboy, and then got him amongst arguably one of the best rope horse trainers and one of the best cowboys, as far as competition in the arena. And the other day I was telling him, I was like, because the only stuff I can kind of follow now is on social media, to where I can kind of keep my head in the game and see what's going on. And I think he was maybe in one of the fraternities in Houston. And because Trevor's gotten shoulder surgery, so Miles been riding the good stuff. And I couldn't tell if it was Miles or Trevor.
Wow.
Because the swing is starting to get duplicated a little bit like Trevor, the ride in his left hand, how he's setting it up, till he faced, and I could see how he shaped his cowboy hat, because that's the only thing different that I could tell. Their cowboy hats are different, but you watch their styles because their shirts are the same.
Yep.
And then he was riding Trevor's horses, but his swing, I thought it was Trevor. And it's amazing when you're around it every single day and you're around the best every single day, you're going to get good. Yep. You're going to get real good.
Yeah, you're damn
and
right.
He's gotten good on both ends.
Yep.
What they say that you surround yourself with in 5 years is what, you're going to end up being. So, you're around guys smoking cigarettes, you're going to be the 6th. You're around 5 guys right there that are, the best guys in the world, like basically Trevor in that environment. And then now he's one of the top guys out there.
Yep.
It's been fun to watch. I really like that guy and respect him. He's in his horsemanship is getting phenomenal.
Well, just when I was over there, before he was even with Trevor, like his horses were perfect.
Mm-hmm.
He had 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds over there. And I went over there, and we sat there from like 2 p.m. till 8 p.m. So 6 hours. And I think he had a good thing going over there, because it was, which he does now, but right there where at his house was like right at the flight zone for the Air Force. Mm. And so you wouldn't see these jets, and all of a sudden you hear they would fly by, and the 3 horses I took over there, their ears never went down. They were straight up. They never quit moving, and all his horses are just sitting over there, not moving, not fazed by it at all. But those things are loud, and then you'd be sitting over there and you'd hear them shooting the miniguns into the mountains, like nice. Loud, and
get them desensitized for the shows.
You dang right. Yeah, you dang right.
Yeah, no, I've been real proud of where his career's going for sure. But I've got some videos here that I love to watch, and because it seemed like San Antonio, I started watching you guys making some good runs there.
Oh yeah,
and then obviously Houston, but this one just popped up the other day on social media, and this is some serious rankness right here, JC. Like, this was at the U.S. finals. Like, what in the heck are we talking about right here? Fire at the line, 3 coils tight, hits, first top, 4-2 at the U.S. finals. This was a rank shot.
Oh, that's
look at that. Like, talk to me about this. So you get that swing off the back of the box, pulling just enough where the steer stayed in front of you, and I'm telling you, all of the rope tight, and that steer just hits Buddy. That's Buddy, right?
Yeah, it's Bud's
first hop. 4-2 at the U.S. finals.
That I talked to
that
Buds
has some
about
dust
that.
and a squeeze a look to it right there.
I talked to Buds about that this year, and I was like, I'm sure winning the U.S. finals is cool, but when I was a little boy and I would watch the U.S. finals, the U.S. Open, the coolest thing ever was the guys that went fast. I said, I just want a highlight reel. That's all I want.
Nailed it.
And didn't I should have.
That went viral, that shot.
I thought that was so fun to just get to do that. And then like I've got it screen recorded on my phone. I'm like, this is USTRC fast time. I'm like, yes.
And short round 4
yes.
too.
I'm like, that was so fun.
That was right. Because that's a real setup. That's not like, horn around. I mean, the steers are strong and it's out there.
I messed up my pulling on my third steer for Buddy. And like I was pulling the steer and I went to bring my horse back and it popped off my horn right when he threw. So it changed the steer, got a leg. And I'm like, oh man, this is my fault. And I never take my sorrel to the ropings ever. I was like, U.S. finals, something might happen.
I'm going to get a reel.
Yeah. And so he sees me loping him and he said, you bringing white heat right here? I said, I think I want to go fast, but I want to get the steer caught. Like I want to be in the short. He's like, okay. Boom. Broke the barrier. We were like 4-something. And we made it back. We were 18th call back. And he was like, you bringing white heat? I was like, I think we need to catch the cow.
That was it. This run, I'm in love with this run. This is such a good run. I'll take the noise off right here. But like this one here, I don't remember what round this was at Houston, but this just looks so clean from when you bring your swing up, it's open. You can tell you got the feel of where your horse is. And I mean, cut the horns off tight and then ride the heck out of your horse. But that went on tight like a tiger right there. And then just post that steer up and the tight face. Like that is such a good run. What was that, 2 or 3 coils? Oh,
I think it was maybe 2.
Was it 2?
Yeah,
it went on tight.
We knew that steer was fast.
And steps left.
Yeah.
Small horns. Horns barely stick out past the horn wraps. But like what I like is how good your first swing got enough between your hands. Got the finesse right there to be able to weld it on the horns, but nothing's panicked. And then now just riding your horse to where your horns, the saddle horn stays up through the corner. And it looks like Buddy just knows exactly where each hop's going after that. Where he can just annihilate him back there.
Yeah, that was amazing healing.
That was just such a smooth job of heading and setting it up though. From the timing when it went around the horns to it's tight right there. Got the steer's head moving. Because for a healer, when that rope goes on, that steer starts developing and posting up in that corner, they know exactly where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And that looks so good. There was no hit, big hop, long hop, dead hop. It was just all in one motion.
And that steer was actually horrible. The 2 guys that ran him in front of us, he fell down with the first guy when he headed him. And the second guy was Coleman, and he splattered so bad. Like he started the turn good, and then he just like blew up, splattered. I think Logan maybe got a leg right there or something. It was their second steer.
You did such a good job. It was tight around the horns and then just stayed smooth and consistent around through that corner. And the horse looked great. This one was really good. I think this one was to make it back, if I remembered right. So you didn't have to be near as fast.
This was the 10-man, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And was just smart, tight, and then that horse just stays up all the way through the corner. Buddy knows where each hop is going.
That's what I was talking earlier. Is like it's so easy that steer stepping into me to be kind of sloppy, try to get a neck. Where like that's the same steer we ran when we were 4-5 in the last video.
Yep.
And I was like, if I'm gonna catch a steer, I want it to look good. Like I want it to be sharp. I want to hit the horns hard.
Yeah.
And then whenever he was stepping left, I was like, if I just change the direction of the steer, that's gonna be plenty good. Like,
but I thought you did such a good job. For one, good start. You're staying aggressive. You're not doing anything that's like looking like it's hard. You're staying aggressive, sharp loop. Keep your width when he steps into you. It goes around the horns tight as freaking Dick's hat band right there. And what I like, though, is like when you rope and you go to step out or you slow your horse down, it turns the steer but knocks the stride off. Because when they go that hard left, it's hard for the healer to get caught up.
Yeah.
And you did a great job of controlling that corner where you're still turning the steer but still knocking a stride off that steer. So when Buddy comes in, he can get caught up to him.
Yep.
Now, he's still got to cowboy up a little bit because there's only so much you can take off that steer and wait for him to not kill the momentum. But
because that sucker's fast, too.
Yeah,
it's a fast steer. When we were 4-5 on him, I was like, wow.
But then here's what I love, too. This is where a lot of headers make the mistakes, is when he heels him, that head stays tight all the way. That rope stays tight on that steer's head all the way through the finish, all the way to the end of it. That steer never gets his head back at all. That's what I've been really impressed with, how good you've been finishing as well.
Thank you.
That looks so good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool to like get the horses to where they really snap and come back. But then I was like, there's
a dead spot.
There's a dead spot, and the steer's head always turned back. So like none of my horses ever, like that's my biggest thing is like critiquing the face. Is like I never want the rope to be loose. Like when I start my face, they need to come back and then whip their hips through. Like I don't care if their front end ever moves.
Yeah.
Because
that was probably my biggest Achilles heel when I was rodeoing was that finish.
Yeah, it's going to be tight. Where like if it's at the spot where it is on the horn right now, and if they just whip their hips through, it's still going to be tight. So it's like if they fold up and then jump through themselves, it's not tight, and they got to come back. Yep. And I think it's super good, and it helps a horse just sit there at the end of it too. Like when they snap, their momentum's still taking them back. Where like when they face like that, they can their hind end can be through, and then there's like they can just be stopped and solid, and like that helps the flag get dropped.
Because one of the things that I've been really watching, like that I love, like how good you finish, was you keep riding through the finish, and that's where like I used to whip all at once. When you whip all at once, you quit riding.
Yep.
And then the steer gets his head back. Like you stay riding where it stays smooth all the way, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's done. That's one thing Joseph and I was really studying was the finish too, like this weekend at Maturity. Yep. And he was talking about like where he's been running his hand up that horse's neck and how he's using his feet to be able to rotate that steer, that horse all the way around to the steer. And like, that's the fun part about going to the fraternities is like, then you're just dissecting all these different ways to do it. I'm like, I wish I'd have known this when I was rodeoing, because that's what I love about the fraternities is they're updating the horsemanship to where it's going to trickle up to the events. And at the pro side, because what you're doing now, there's just no dead space, and that's where you're getting them flags too. And it looks that was a sharp run, because that's that easy money.
Yep.
That Thorpe was talking about. When you only have to be, what do you have to be to make it back?
We had to beat like 9 something.
Yeah.
We were 6. We ended up 3rd or second.
That's going to get in that, making sure that you don't. That's that easy money. Making sure you can make those runs that when you need to make them, that you can make them.
Yep.
That look good. And then let's do this freaking Final 4 shot. Are you kidding me right here? This is freaking game right here. This is the Final 4 at Houston. What are you, 3rd out?
Second
out.
Yeah, well, we're 3rd out.
3rd out.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, hit the barrier, and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to get him. And you freaking bring heat from 3 coals to the right on a low-headed steer.
I missed that.
What?
I bought that steer in the paint, the one that we ran twice.
And then even after all that, hold his head, keep it tight, keep riding tight. Holy smokes, JC.
That steer, I didn't realize how hard he was to hit. I miss him all the time. Because I run him over there at Buddy's house. And I miss him all the time.
Champion of the National Finals rodeo, a long reach on the front, 2 feet.
So we usually never have a game plan. Like Bud's, he'll just come over to him and ask me about like what I'm kind of thinking. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll just rope the steer for what he is. And every steer we've ran, like if you go back and you watch every video from Houston, they all came left. And so Buddy's like, what do you think we should do? Like the steer wants to be straight. And I'm like, I'm just going to be riding to the left, and I'm just going to be thinking that you're going to bring him. Like, we'll just not change anything. Like, we'll just all ride left, bring the steer left. And I hit the barrier and I'm riding left and the steers are running right. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Watch it from this angle. Watch how hard. I mean, you can't see the right horn. And his horn's just a little bit lower than his shoulder, just a little bit. From that far, that's a tough shot. Like his horn's lower than his shoulder. From 3 coils back off to the right, that's like a freaking half court shot. And goes on tight. I'm telling you, like, there's guys who win Houston and just like win Houston and the best time. And then there's guys that rope better than everybody else and wins Houston, and that was it.
Like, shoot.
That was a run, dude. That was so ranked. That's winning it. That is winning with an exclamation point. That was a harder shot. One of the harder shots I've seen.
Well, I appreciate that.
And how cool is that, though, to make that hard shot for $50,000?
Oh, yeah.
In Houston, huh?
Yeah, it was nice.
What? That was so cool.
I was excited.
That was so cool. Here's another thing I really, really liked was I loved your interview. This is when I became a real big fan, JC, was when they interviewed you on the big stage at Houston.
Pulled off an amazing feat there, and I know the first time for you. Tell us what's going through your mind and what your emotions are right now.
Oh, I'm just so happy. I just told the Lord that when I was praying that I'd give him all thanks, and that this is only possible because of him, and I'm just so thankful.
And Buddy,
It's pretty humble.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Used to as a kid, I would pray, Lord, let me do good, let it go my direction. And I'm like, I don't think that's praying for the right thing. I think if you, and not saying there's a wrong way to pray, but I felt like there was a lot of conviction there for me. And I was like, if I can just let the Lord's light shine through me to reflect on others, that's living. Like somebody asked me the other day, is like, what's your biggest goal in life? And I'm like, man, I want my biggest goal in life to be people saying that I'm a good guy. People saying that, that, man, I feel the Lord through him. And like, that's the biggest thing to me. Like, roping is awesome and all, but the kingdom is so much bigger than roping.
Where did your faith come from?
I've always went to church, but my best friend is Bryce Jenkins. And Bryce Jenkins is like the most God-fearing man I know, and he has helped me so much with that. Like, we will talk every day, and every day that we talk, we don't talk about hardly anything else other but horses and the Bible. And I got I got a deal where I've been reading the Bible every day, and I think my Bible streak is 315.
That's pretty good.
And
that's not easy to do, especially if you don't have service.
No, it's not. But it's that to me is like, I don't know. It's hard to be like, it's hard to keep doing it. Like, it's so easy to not do it. But then there's that part of me is like, this is only possible because of him. So it's like, you got to give it all to him. Like,
I thought that was really respectful of when you had that opportunity that you did, because that's probably your biggest win in your whole life.
Ever.
And to not forget that at that moment, that is where the glory. I mean, that's what we talk about, is giving the glory to God. And that was really cool. Really cool.
Thank you.
I was reading something this morning. It said there are only two things that you do on earth that you won't do in heaven. First, in heaven, you can't sin. Second, you can't witness to a non-believer about Christ's love and forgiveness, because only God's children are there. That's why once you become a believer, God does not take you instantly to heaven. He wants you to pass on the good news of salvation and grace. And one of the reasons you're going to heaven is because somebody told you about the gospel. And now it's your turn to tell others. And I read that this morning, and I watched that interview that you did, and I was like, it was so cool. It was so cool. Like, what, what I read and then what I witnessed, like, that's what Trevor talked about when I was talking to him, about what church we go to. I'm like, well, sometimes I go, sometimes I don't. And, we watch it a lot. And he's like, well, that's good to be fed by the Spirit and by the Word. But he said, he talked about bearing witness.
I do.
And when I read that and then watched your interview on Houston, I was like, wow, that was it, of bearing witness.
Yeah. When I moved down here, my mom, she would message me every Sunday. She'd be like, you going to church? No, I don't think so. But like, every day I was reading the Bible and I was feeding myself. Like, and I went to the Cowboy Church of Erath County a few times, probably 4 or 5 times, but every day, like, and it seems like I do it more on Sundays, is like, like I try to give as much thanks as I can. Like, this is, like I said, it's only possible because of him, but this is pretty neat right here. So the other day, it was during Thorpe's roping. It was the one he had on Sunday, and maybe Sunday. Well, Bryce, his head horse is so good, and I tried it, and I rode it as roping, and then I'm like, well, Bryce, let's go get some lunch over here at Hard 8. And we're sitting there, we're talking, and it's like, in the Bible, I'm not sure where it's at, but it's talking about healing the blind and the crippled, and it says in the Bible we're supposed to do all of this and more. And I'm like, Bryce, I said, what? How do you do all of this and more? Like, how do you do what he did and more? Like, is that not crazy to you? And he's like, wow, like, that's crazy. I'm like, how the crap do you heal the blind? Blind guy walks in. Hard 8. I've never seen a blind person in my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm sitting there talking to Bryce, and I'm like, Bryce, I've never had this feeling in my life. Like, my stomach is just like, it feels like I just drank a bottle of gasoline. Like, it's just burning. And I went over there and I talked to him, and I'm like, it seemed like I just talked to him. Like, I'm like, hey man, like, like all this. I'm like, hey, you mind if I have your name? Like, I just want to pray for you. I said, I've roped my whole life, and I've been on big stages, and I've never had this feeling before in my life. Like, this is, and the crazy thing is that we were just talking about it, and like, how bizarre is it that that guy walks in the middle of this conversation of talking about it? I'm like, Bryce, like, dude, this is nuts. Like, I've got to pray for this guy, like, you know, and so I pray for that guy all the time, and this was like 3 weeks ago or whatever, but I still pray for him. Like, it's, to me, that was a big eye opener.
I remember that one thing you shared on Facebook when it talked about how sometimes doesn't feel like he's there, but because you're not hearing him. But then it talks about when you're in school, the teacher doesn't talk during the test.
Yeah.
And the test just walked right through the door. You're wanting to know when the answer was, and then it's phenomenal how he works when a guy's looking for it. If a guy's looking for it, then you'll see it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That the kingdom is so much bigger than what a person thinks.
Yeah. Well, man, I think you're a great kid. I've become a huge fan, and I've talked to a few people that know you, and everyone says the same thing. He's a great guy, and I'm rooting for you this summer. You're gonna have a great summer.
Oh, shoot,
I'm really excited about watching you guys at Thompson Mac.
Oh yeah, I hope I can just continue to do my job.
You're going to do your job. It looks really good. The fundamentals are there, the ability's there, and it looks really, really good. I can't wait to get you to come to my military roping that I have at the end of the year. So
yeah, that's cool.
Guys that make the NFR, like they go to the NFR showdown, and through my foundation and stuff like that, I'm excited for this year because we're going to raise over $1 million that we're able to give back to military and first responders.
Wow.
And then I'm getting ready. The guys are coming over. As soon as we're done with this, I'm fixing to go get steaks and some beer, and we're fixing to come here to the house. We're all going to go brand tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so we get like 12 to 15 guys that have never rode before that struggle with PTSD. And through this branding, the branding was one of the funnest things I ever did when I was a kid. My dad used to always take me branding. I'm a wannabe cowboy. I wished I was a cowboy, but getting to do cowboy stuff was some of the funnest experiences I ever got to do.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to give that to these guys. And so we get 12 guys in that's never been on a horse that struggle with PTSD. We'll be out there horseback at the Allsups Ranch with Tyler Schaffner. He's heading it. And get these guys out there and go gather up the cattle and sort the cows out the calves, and then the guys that never branded before, we'll have them running the guns and
that's living, man,
and doing the doctor and stuff like that, using groundwork. And then my ambassadors through my foundation, they all rope, and so all my military first responder guys that are ambassadors, they'll drag head and heel and drag the calves in the fire and stuff.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's fun. It's a fun day to get to go do the stuff that is lost, and then no phone service, and so these guys just get to go feel it's like just go live out there, and and then another thing that's so good for them too is that they're around each other, they're around their people, they're around the guys
that struggle with the same stuff,
they struggle with the same stuff, and they're like-minded, and so it does more than I'll ever know just from what they tell me, and so it's pretty cool for me to be able to utilize what I was able to do with my strengths and give back that way. Yep. And it's been fun. So yeah, I'm really excited about our brand this weekend.
That's amazing.
And I can't wait to have you come to the roping in November and stuff, and come stick some steers for these guys.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. I got to get you to meet my Marine cowboy. He's a Navajo from out there in New Mexico, and he came to the clinic last year. Oh, Daryl Pino. He's one of my guys. He's a great guy. He won the Top Hand Award last year at the clinic.
Oh, no kidding.
And great guy. He used to ride bulls, and he's still sticking steers. He's up there a little bit in age, but he's a great, great man. And there's some cool guys that come out through that through the military and first responders, and it's fun to be able to see the guys that the guys I used to make a living with, and then I've got a great bond with these guys now, the military and first responders, and it's a brotherhood, and to be able to mash the two, it's fun. The military first responder pro roping is by far one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it's almost like mixing the bulldogging with team roping, because everyone's rooting for each other. It's like when if one guy just stays on that you thought was going to fall off, everyone, yeah, man, you did it, and then one guy might catch his first steer, and then,
that's
and
amazing.
the culture of it is just so much different than a normal team rope. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot like the bulldogging. And yeah, it's fun now to where a lot of the NFR guys now have been coming to this enough times now where there's kind of a bond and a brotherhood a little bit now with the military and first responders, and it's fun to see. It's one of those things you gotta kind of see it to like feel it.
Yeah.
And when you can feel God's presence, it for me as when I was there, like I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool to get to watch this stuff that doesn't ever happen in team roping. So
yeah,
can't wait to see you there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the NFR showdown will be on Sunday, and it'll be fun to watch you and Buddy.
Yeah,
get ready for the NFR. I'll be excited.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know it's a busy time of year, and do good out there this summer. Be rooting for you.
Thank you for having me.
How do we follow you?
Social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
I try to get better about posting. My brother, he's a social media guy. He loves it. Me, I'm kind of a lot more just go with the flow.
Well, you've done a good job.
I
watched a lot.
it,
I watched a lot this morning. I watched a lot of your guys' runs this morning, and they look good. They're fun to watch.
Oh, thank you.
So awesome. Yeah, we'll be following you.
Oh, thank you.
All right,
appreciate it.
do good.
Yes, sir.